Nippon Hoso Podcast Station.
Today we are diving into 攻殻機動隊 or Ghost in the Shell. どっちにせよ、一人の人間が一生のうちに触れる情報なんて僅かなもんさ。So in English, at any rate, the information one collects in his lifetime is minuscule. これ本当にめちゃくちゃ都市伝説とかの YouTube でよく聞きます聞きますよね。 Anime English Club with Sally Amaki.Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 54 of the Anime English Club. I'm your host, Sally Amaki. 今週もよろしくお願いします。Guys, I am just recovering from my second food poisoning this month. 2度目の食中毒から今ようやく復帰しているんですけど、So today is what?Tuesday, Wednesday, I got food poisoning on Saturday from the oysters I ate on Friday.I think it was the oysters. That's the only thing I can remember I ate raw oysters on Friday, which was terrible because I went right before the restaurant was closing. It was the last order. ラストオーダーで牡蠣を頼んだんですよ。そのラストオーダー牡蠣。だから、精度っていうんですか、精度が一番落ちている牡蠣を食べたんですね。鮮度が一番悪い牡蠣を食べたら見事食中毒になりました。It was, yeah. So if you're ever planning on eating raw oysters, do not order it at the very last minute. はい。本当におすすめしません。It was crazy. Except, as you can tell, there goes my summer body. I'm summer ready now because I got skinny from food poisoning. So I'm ready for the pool. All right.Anyway, today we are diving into 攻殻機動隊 or Ghost in the Shell. So Ghost in the Shell is an animated film directed by Mamoru Oshii, released in 1995. Damn. Based on the manga by Masamune Shirow. The story is set in the near future where cyber brains, allowing people's minds to connect directly to networks, and prosthetic bodies or cyborgs are commonplace. It follows the activities of Public Security Section 9, also known as the Ghost in the Shell Squad, as they combat cyber terrorism and hacking crimes. It's a hugely popular work both in Japan and internationally, with over 10 series adaptations, and a new TV anime is scheduled for release in Japan this July.So the protagonist, Mochako Kusanagi, also known as the Major, has a fully prosthetic body and the philosophical story that deeply questions what exactly is my own soul or ghost. It's a major part of its appeal. It's a legendary work that is said to have had a significant influence on creators worldwide, including the Hollywood movie The Matrix.They also had a Hollywood version of this movie, right, with Scarlett Johansson, I think, Ghost in the Shell. Yeah, Ghost in the Shell was, I think, made in Hollywood, if I recall. But yeah, 1995, wow. What's up with the anime community lately? Like, I feel like a lot of old school shows are getting either a reboot, a remake, or they're getting like a new series and stuff. I heard that it's because kids that used to watch these animes or these series as a kid now have the power to make their own anime. So they're using that power to make new series of like of their old series that they used to like. So yay. Go us. Go adults. Hi. So let's dive into today's line. So the line we're diving deep into today is どっちにせよ、一人の人間が一生のうちに触れる情報なんて僅かなもんさ。So in English, at any rate, the information one collects in his lifetime is minuscule.So this line is from a scene where the protagonist, Mochako Kusanagi, is diving in the sea on her day off, and her partner, Bato, greets her on the boat. As she surfaces, Mochako is deep in thought about her own existence, her soul, her ghost. In response, Bato says this line, almost as if to tell her not to think so deeply, with a realistic and somewhat detached perspective. It's a quiet and beautiful yet famous scene. Honestly, I'm nothing like Motoko. Like, I have no ghost in me or whatever, but I still sometimes am lost deep in my thoughts because I forget who I am. Does it happen to to you guys as well? Like, when you look at a mirror too much, do you forget who you are? Because idols, I'm in an idol group, 7分の22. I keep having to remind everybody this. I am in an idol group. Our rehearsals are literally like 7 hours in front of a ginormous mirror. That means you are looking at a mirror, you're looking at yourself for 7 hours straight. I'm like, who is this person? I don't know you. I start to lose my mind. So, I don't have any prosthetic bodies, or I'm not robotic in any way or form, but I still get lost. So I can see why Motoko gets lost. If nothing belongs to her, I'd be like, who am I? So yeah, I don't know who I am. Yeah. Does it happen? I don't know. Is it just me? I'll be sitting in a chair, and sometimes I feel like I'm up here. 幽体離脱しますよね。しますか？幽体離脱。I feel like out of my body. I feel like I'm out of my body, and I'm looking at the whole entire room through another person's perspective. 心ここにあらずとか、そうなんですよ。はい。何なんですかね、あれ。どうしよう、これ。調べたらなんかの病気出てきたらどうしよう。何か出てきちゃったらどうしよう。はい。でも本当にたまに、元子じゃないですけど、自分が分からなくなる時あるので、はい。だいぶちょっと共感するとこはありますね。Anyway, if you need help, I guess...talk to somebody in the comment section. Talk amongst yourself, guys. Okay, everybody's friends here. But anyway, let's break down some vocab. So this phrase is from Bato. So Bato, he says, at any rate, the information one collects in his lifetime is minuscule. So at any rate means どっちにせよ、いずれにせよ、とにかくみたいな。本当何かの意味があるというよりかは。みたいな感じですね。どっちにせよみたいな感じなので I don't know if I would use at any rate. I've actually never used at any rate in my life before. Maybe it's because I'm not very intellectual. I'm not going to put myself down like that. I am very intellectual. However, I have never used at any rate in my lifetime. I would, if I were to say this, I would say either or I would just say anyway. You know what? Anyway, the information one collects in his lifetime is minuscule. I'd say anyway. どっちにせよの略詞だったら either or って言います。either or. これかこれみたいな意味なんですけど、ちょうどどっちにせよの結構直訳になりますよね。はい。で、とにかくだったら anyway ですね。at any rate はなんでこの言葉になったんだろう at any rate。全然同じ意味合いはあるんですけど、なんで at any rate がそもそもとにかくみたいな意味になってんだろう at any rate。 なんでですか？ Should we Google this, guys? At any rate, why is any, or we can just pretend that didn't happen and just go to the next section. At any rate。はい、私使ったことないので例文もどっちにせよです。At any rate, we should just go to the next section because I don't know how to use this phrase. みたいな。At any rate.
その割合みたいな話。だからどの程度の割合でもみたいな。
直訳すると at any rate がどの程度の割合にもってなるのでどっちにせよってなるってことですか？であればなおさらanyway でいいと思います。はい。皆さんはそんなに at any rate とか使わなくて大丈夫です。覚えておくだけでも大丈夫。Just remember that it is a saying or it's something that you can say, but I advise you guys to use anyway or either or because it's so much simpler. Okay.
ちょっとその作品上の言い回しもあるかもしれないですね。
確かに。
データ上の世界で割と生きてるので。
なるほど。
そういう
データ上
とかそういう の言い回しがもしかしたらちょっと入ってるかもしれない。
なるほど。ほいはい。Next is one. So in this case, one ここでの one は数字の1 one ではなく一般的に人を示す代名詞として使われてますね。だから at any rate, the information one collects in his lifetime is minuscule. So I feel like you can use one in many forms. Let's say, for instance, you're the one who told me to watch this anime の時も you're the one あなたがその張本人でしょうの張本人が one になります you're the one とかoh he's the one who broke my best friend's heart みたいな本当にそういった張本人人みたいな感じの時に he's the one とか you're the one she's the one I'm the one とかlet's say I guess in a sports anime I'd be like I'm the one who's gonna get this gold medal とかまあそんな感じですね。自分がその人自分がその人物でその張本人ですみたいな時に one で使います。次collect So collect は集めるここではまあ情報を触れる収集するという意味で使われていますね。But collect this is pretty self-explanatory. Like it's the same as when you say, I collect a lot of idol CDs. I collect a lot of figures, anime figures. Or you can say, I'm a collector. If you are somebody who collects something, you would be a collector. はい。日本語でもコレクターって言いますもんね。はい。そのまま英語もそうです。I'm a collector って言いますね。はい。なので、集める。I collect something.他に何だろう I collect まあでもそんなもんですよねはい If you collect something 集める collect Next minuscule Oh gosh I've actually never used this word as well I've heard of it many times but I've also never used this minuscule So 極めて小さいごくわずかな tiny or very small よりもさらに小さくまるでもう取るに足らないというニュアンスを含んだ単語ですね。本当minuscule本当望遠鏡マイクロスコープ点鼻鏡で見るぐらいの本当こんなちっちゃいもうこんなちっちゃいよみたいなあなたの悩みなんてこんなちっちゃいよみたいな時の minuscule ですね。if you can't memorize this word minuscule you can say oh it's not that much or you can say tiny. You can say tiny, but change the way you say tiny, and it can still mean minuscule. So when you say tiny, for instance, at any rate, the information one collects in his lifetime is tiny. I'd be like, the information one collects in his lifetime is tiny. Like, if you change the way you say it, things can mean something different. So tiny can also mean minuscule 本当言い方次第でだから本当日本語でもそうじゃないですか It's the same in Japanese これ小さいよねって言ったら普通に小さい感じですけどなんだろう日本語で小さいさらに小さいものって何ですかもう豆粒これ豆粒ぐらいだよねのニュアンスの小さいよねもうちっちゃいよねって言うじゃないですかそんな感じですそんな感じでもうってネズミのような言い方をすれば何でもめっちゃちっちゃく感じるのでおすすめです。はい。ものはいいよ。本当言い方によって全然伝わり方が違うのでわざわざminusculeとか難しい言葉は使わなくて大丈夫です。はい。感情を乗せれば伝わります。はい。So let's practice pronouncing this week's phrase. So this week's phrase is どっちにせよ一人の人間が一生のうちに触れる情報なんてわずかなもんさSo in English, at any rate, the information one collects in his lifetime is minuscule. One more time. At any rate, the information one collects in his lifetime is minuscule. So pronunciation tips. At any rate, at any, at any rate. これどこが難しいですか？
T 飛ばしてるのは
at add any. Yeah, I guess the T kind of sounds like a D. Instead of saying at any, I feel like I'm pronouncing it more like a D, like add any, at any rate. I'd say keeping a smile on your face kind of helps you pronounce this word because rate comes like really fast. So just keep your lips on the side, like at any rate. If you don't close your mouth, I feel like rate comes very naturally. At any rate. At any rate. The last T in the rate, pretend that you're kind of like spitting at somebody that you don't really like, but low-key spitting, not like it's like low-key spitting, like at any rate, you know. 下にちょっと嫌いな人に対してのつじゃなくてちょっとちっちゃい方のつみたいな感じの at any rate って言ったらいけます。はい。minuscule. I guess it's the cule, the minuscule.クオカードみたいな感じですよね。ちょっと口の中がクオカードみたいな感じの喉のプレイスメントです。最初ミネスクオカード、ミネスクオはい。で徐々に喉を閉めてったらクがキューになっててミネスキュオになりますね。はい。ちょっとどんどん喉を閉めていってください。minuscule. Alright. Perfect. You guys are fluent.
アニメイングリッシュクラブ with サリー・アマキ。
Now let's look at the cultural context. So in today's phrase, the word for a tiny amount was translated as minuscule, but I'd like to look at a few other expressions that mean a tiny amount or insignificant. はい。今回のセリフで、わずかなもんさという言葉が minuscule と略されていましたが、他にもごくわずかとか、取るに足らないという表現をいくつか見てみたいと思います。So let's say, number one, a drop in the bucket. So a drop in the bucket in Japanese means バケツの中の一滴。全体から見たらスズメの涙という意味で非常によく使われるものですね。これ知らなかったんですけど、イギリス英語だと a drop in the ocean って言うらしいです。海の中の一滴。すごいね。さらに大きくしてきますね。やっぱりイギリスは。そうなんですよ。ちょっとね、ライバル関係ではあるので。ちょっと変えてくるんですよね。はい。a drop in the bucket. で、本当に、そんなこと気にしなくても、it's just a drop in the bucket みたいな感じの、なんか、世界を大きく見たら、もうこのちっちゃいみたいな。はい。a drop in the bucket. That's just a drop in the bucket. で、よく使います。It's just a drop in the bucket. はい。あんまり、私は好きじゃないですけどね。a drop in the bucket. なんかなんて言うんですか、あなたの悩み事なんて、バケツの中の一滴だよなんて言われたらはーってなりますけどもI'll be like, what do you know? And also, my bucket is like this tiny. First of all, who said this bucket was like this big? My bucket is this tiny. But yeah, anyway, so when you use this word, please do be careful on who you're saying it to, because if you say it to me, it will become a fight. Okay, next. Just the tip of the iceberg. So just the tip of the iceberg, there actually is a Japanese saying exactly like this. 氷山の一角っていう本当直訳ですね。同じ意味があります。見えている部分はほんの少しで、水面下にはもっと大きなものが隠れているという時に使います。はい。これ本当にめちゃくちゃ、都市伝説とかの YouTube でよく聞きます。聞きますよね。Yeah, a lot of, I hear this a lot on those like mysterious like YouTube videos being like, oh, do you know this documentary? Like what was on the news was just the tip of the iceberg. Now let's like dive deep into the real story みたいな感じの。 はい。だから、それこそ、じゃあ友達と噂話してます。その時に、Did you know the story we just heard was just the tip of the iceberg and there's、so much more to the story? みたいな。本当にさっきの聞いた話、氷山の一角で、本当はもっともっといろんなことがあったらしいよ、みたいな時に、It's just the tip of the iceberg って言いますね。次。A fraction of 〇〇のほんの一部。A fraction は分数や割合という意味があるんですけど、ほんの一握りの人しか知らないなんて時には a fraction of people と使います。はい。だからよく使われるのは、じゃあ私は芸能界に行きたいです。声優になりたいですって時に、声優になれる人なんてほんの一握りなんだからみたいな感じに親に言われたことがある人は、本当only a fraction of people actually succeed、as a voice actor とか only a fraction of people make it in that industry みたいな感じのほんの一握りって意味ですね。a fraction of でよく使ってください。あとは私が好きな言葉なんですけど、needle in a haystack っていう言葉があるんですけど、直訳すると、干し草の山の中の針って意味なんですけど、探偵の方とかが、もう、じゃあ、タイムズスクエア、ニューヨークのタイムズスクエアで、この中に怪しい人がいますって時に、That's a needle in a haystack みたいな。finding the suspect in here is like finding a needle in a haystack みたいな。この大人数の中から犯人を探すなんて、干し草の山の中から針一本見つけるのと同じぐらい難しいよみたいな感じでよく言われてるんですけど、その中で一休さんみたいなキャラクターはよく、じゃあその干し草の山に火をつければいいじゃないかみたいな言うんですよね。Just light the haystack on fire みたいな感じでよくね、ちょっとたまに一休さんキャラが言うので、それ込みで皆さんおすすめです。誰かが、That's a needle in a haystackって言われたら then light that haystack on fire って言ってくださいね。はい。ちょっと一個上行きましょうね。はい。ぜひ使ってください。あとは、さっき言った just the tip of the iceberg みたいな感じの見えている部分はほんの少しみたいな感じのちょっとコンフィデンスマン JP みたいな感じのことを言いたかったら、not everything you see is what it seems は本当直訳で見えているものが真実とは限らないっていう Not everything you see is what it seems これもことわざというよりかはだいぶ悟って何か目上の方とかが何か教えてくれるときによく使いますね。Not everything you see is what it seems みたいな。あとよくニュース番組とかでも使われます。ニュースを全部信じるのはやめましょうみたいな。見えてるものが全て真実とは限りませんの時に Not everything you see is what it seems ってよく使われるので、ぜひ皆さん参考にしてください。And now that is it for this week's episode of the Anime English Club. Next episode, we are going to continue exploring 攻殻機動隊 or Ghost in the Shell. So stay tuned. You can listen to Anime English Club as a podcast and on YouTube, or you can follow along with transcripts and subtitles. You can adjust the speed however you want and listen as many times as you need to get comfortable with English. Listening over and over is really the key to mastering any language.For Japanese and English subtitles, go to youtube.com/@anime-english-club or just search by the title. And the Anime English Club wants to hear from you. So please let us know any anime you'd like us to cover, or for specific lines, please tell us whose line it is and which episode it's from. Or just any general English questions you guys have to ask, please email us.Email us at aec@1242.com. That is aec@1242.com. You can email me in either Japanese or English. メールは日本語でも英語でも大丈夫です。ということで皆さん、また来週お会いしましょう。Thanks for listening. Bye! From the Nippon Hoso Podcast Station, this is the Anime English Club, hosted by me, Sally Amaki. This episode was written by Naoki Nakamura, edited by Nana Yoshimura, directed by Hiroshi Kochi, all from Waltz Inc. Our executive producer is Shiori Tanaka for Nippon Broadcasting System Japan.